All right. Have fun. All right, thank you everyone for coming. Just so you know the context, someone had been unable to speak at about 9 o'clock, so we said, hey, we have a talk ready to go. We're happy to jump in and talk about something fun. So my name is Philip Hartley, and this is my boss, Gabe LeBlanc over here, in the corner. So for those of you who attend the ISSA meetings in Charleston, I apologize. It's going to be a repeat. It's the same talk we just gave. That's why I was ready to go. So what we're going to be talking about today is passive reconnaissance in the context of doing red team and blue team engagements. So just so you know a little bit more about us, we don't have a who am I slide. There's plenty of information about us online, but we work on a red team for the DoD. We work out of Spearwood, Charleston. So we're continuously doing these sorts of engagements. I've been fortunate enough to be able to be doing this for the last year or so. Dave's been doing this much longer than I have, which is why he's the lead presenter here. Today we're going to be talking about passive recon, which is a component of open source intelligence gathering. It's kind of a mapping and reconnaissance portion of the assessment where you're finding a little bit about your target organization. And that's pretty much it. Black Lantern Security Group. We're just a group of guys like talking about security. Basic disclaimer, this is not being given on behalf or in association with SPAWAR. Our opinions are our own. This is in no way associated with the Navy or any of the work we do. So if it blows, it's our fault. Want this one? What? You got it?
Relax, you got plenty of slides.
All right. We're going to try not to go over. Last time it took about an hour and 15 minutes, so we're going to go slow.
So real quickly, we're not reinventing the wheel here. I'm sorry. Staying on the shoulders of giants, there's thousands and thousands of talks on SlideShare if you look up social engineering and OSINT. So we're not really deviating too much from the truth. We're just going to talk, like Phil said, about passive stuff, doing OSINT without actually sending any packets at your target network, right? So it's about the principles, really. We follow a methodology that we stick very closely to. We don't really care about tools. We're pretty agnostic about tools and flavors of operating system and that kind of thing. It doesn't matter. It's just methodology, right? They're not intended to be comprehensive. This is not, follow all these steps and you will be elite OSINT dude. This is just some things that we do, okay? Again, every customer provides a new challenge, so don't think this necessarily applies to all. You will have to deviate back and forth depending on how you do things. So we want to talk about terminology, we want to talk about methodology, objectives, baseline, case study. We got one of those. I think we got two of those. Risk and mitigations, and then we're going to sum it all up. We're going to talk about some mitigations at the end. So let's talk about some terminology, right? Vulnerability assessment, to us at least, from what we kind of gather, is that vulnerability assessment to a lot of people means running Retina. Is that kind of where everybody's at with vulnerability assessment? Run your Retina scan, click a button, it does things. Pen test. A lot of folks aren't too far off from the Retina clicking the button thing. They show up on a thing and click some buttons and then say, I pen tested you, and hit report at the end. Unfortunately, that kind of brings the bar down a lot lower for doing real pen testing, right? So we have a little bit different definition of that. And it kind of goes into full scope red team engagement. So we're talking physical, social, human engineering type stuff. Of course, over the wire, all that good stuff. So to us, a full scope red team is doing anything and everything that you can do and have the authority to do to obtain your objective. Next slide. So what are you looking to affect when you're looking to assess an organization, right? Yeah, it kind of depends on the organization, but really there's some basic categories. It's IP, right? That happens a lot in business. That does happen in the DoD as well. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the situation where the Chinese got our Joint Strike Fighter plans that we spent billions of dollars making, right? So they saved a lot of money by just throwing some dudes from Tianjin University at it, right? Trade secrets, that's a big one for us. We look at PHI a lot. That's actually pretty good info. You can get more money for that now, right, on the black market than you can PII.
Yeah, the articles that I've read apparently sound like polls. Cool kids call it polls, where you actually get someone's get enough information about an individual, including their medical information, to counterfeit insurance documents, and you can use those insurance documents to go off and get health care. So for $1,000, that's what your PHI is worth, which I found super interesting because credit cards are like 50 cents, $1, $5 if they're super clean. So health information's bringing in a lot of money. So that's why we're going to see more and more people going after it.
Yeah, it's good business on the side, and PHI is really, really disgustingly wide open. Its medical communities really are terrible about securing their stuff. It's kind of they've been left alone and just heal people and do things, and we're not really so concerned about stuff, but it's pretty bad. So mergers and acquisitions, that's a big one. We don't deal with it too much in the DoD here, right? But obviously in the business world, that's a big deal, right? Who's buying who and for how much money and all that good stuff. A lot of money can be made doing corporate espionage, right? Troop movements, that's a big one for us, obviously in the military. Who's going to be where and why and how many. Numbers, that's good stuff, right? Logistics. So those are some things you're looking to affect on target. And diplomatic cables is a big one, right? So the whole Benghazi shenanigans with what's her face. I mean, people knew that was going down long before it happened. Those diplomatic cables, your end objective, your text execution, obtain your objectives, report on it, because nothing matters unless you report on it, right? You did absolutely nothing unless you reported on it and it made sense. So that's the most important piece. So how do you get there? How do you get to that end goal? How do you start? And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right. So again, what would be most, what would impact the mission the most, right? Versus business organization. We talked a little bit about a couple of these. Future earnings, fines, faith in customers is huge for banking, right? If you ever do banking stuff, they have like a threshold set where if they get so much money stolen, right, and it would cost more to do public reparations, if you will, and fix that public image than it would be to let that money go. They kind of have insurance for that. They just let that money get stolen. Lives, you can affect lives. You can definitely do that. You can kill people over the interwebs. Anybody heard of drones? Anybody heard of Iran? So political stability, CIA likes doing that stuff, right? Political stability, making things, orchestrating events to happen in a certain way that you want them to happen. You can do that over the interwebs. So force projection, diplomacy, negotiation, right? All big ones to go after. Classified materials, that's a good one, but that kind of is just easy to get, right? I mean, that's the good point about that though is physical, right? You just walk out of a building with a bunch of PHI and sell it on the internet, right? Or your Chelsea Manning, or what's that guy from that one place, Booz Allen and stuff. We got next.
Objective and then Jason.
Okay, so again, our objective is to gather, organize, read that slide. Targeting an identification, right? Exploitation, post-exploitation, right? It's all really about a post-exploitation, right? I mean, getting shell inside somewhere is relatively the easy part nowadays, right? It's usually the stupid user tricks, you can say that, right? But we don't care. Like if you're one of those people that say, that wasn't leak, you didn't get in from the outside, you didn't do all this cool hacker stuff from CTFs, who gives a crap, right? It's about getting to your target objective, obtaining what you're after, and that's it. If you use an email fish and it's good old-fashioned macros inside Excel, and that gets you in, who cares, right? It doesn't have to be some leet ode, don't give a crap, right? We typically go into our engagements planning on not using any exploits, right? Code-based exploits, and we typically don't. We haven't used any so far, and we've been pretty successful. I think the last exploit, true exploit I used, was Sun RPC. Remember that one? Port 111 on Unix boxes, RPC had. So I used that like 2007 was the last time. had to actually use an exploit. And that was because it was a time-sensitive thing. I was like, oh shit. So it's all about voice exploitation. And we'll get to that. That's way down the road in future talks. But all of this is to get there. So doing that, we're going to work backwards, right? So we want to get here. We want to do an attack, right? It's probably going to spearfish, or going to be whatever to get inside, or physical. So let's move backwards past the brain part, and let's start with getting info. So I said we're not too worried about tools, right? Of course, you gotta do tools, right? You're a carpenter. You're trying to build something. You got to use tools in your toolbox to make that happen. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those. Use them if you want, or don't use them, or do whatever. It doesn't really matter. But whatever those tools are, you use those to, get to your end objective. So we're going to talk about Facebook graphs, Foca, all kinds of cool stuff. And in the middle, you take all that stuff. You do all this tool stuff and all this tool stuff just to gather data. Give me all the infos so I can use that to learn about my target, right? To get to this end goal. So out of all these tools, you get raw data, right? You get something back. You ask for something, you get something binary, right? You get something back. You take all that raw data, and the most important piece is turn it into actionable intelligence. Where's the intel guy? Where's that guy? Right there. Everybody look at it. So actionable intelligence, right? It's all about, if you're going to make a decision, a commander's decision, right? Give me something actionable. Don't just tell me stuff, right? If you're hackers, if you do this, don't just say stuff. I have all these things. I can do all this stuff. Nobody cares, right? You need to make a decision. You need to make actionable intelligence to make a decision on to go after a specific objective. And that's where we get to this end goal. And hopefully we'll get that today if I hurry up. Next slide. Is this you?
This is me. Okay, so we talked a little bit about different ways of coming at an organization, methodology. Today's just going to be about passive recon. Again, we're not sending any packets to the organization. This is what we can find out about the organization without them even knowing about it. So when I first joined Gabe's team, literally the first day, he's like, we have an assessment, here's the target, go do stuff. And I was like, all right. So like Gabe said, one of the first things you want to do is think a little bit about your target, who they are, how do they make money, where their critical resources are, and what's going to do the most damage, right? So this is, and OSINT is overwhelming when you first look at it, right? There's a million sources of information. There's tons of information about everyone and every company out there. But to Gabe's point, where are the resources, what's critical, how do they make money, how can I hurt them, and what sort of OSINT do I need to formulate an attack to do it, right? So when I first went out there, I was just grabbing everything I could, right? I had no focus, didn't really have an intelligence product in mind, right? So you always want to have something in mind that you're working towards, that you're gathering data for. Otherwise you end up in a wormhole, in the weeds, without anything to do with a bunch of data you're not sure what to do with. So one of the first things we do when we have a target, we want to gather a nice, thick baseline worth of data about this organization. And this is just what we talked about. Who they are, who might work there, products and services, culture, how they talk, who they speak to, right? These are all good things we want to learn about the company, because if we don't know that, we're not going to know how to attack them, we're not going to know how to affect operations. So in this case, you're going to use categories of tools to bring back raw data to create your baseline. Some of the things to keep in mind as you're creating the baseline are here: key partnerships, leaderships, physical network footprint, mission statement and purpose, right? And then you have categories of tools that can get you there. Again, it's not about the tools, to tell you the truth. Most of the juiciest things that we find are just from manual searches, just eye-bleeding manual grunt work, right, at Google. And you stumble across some pretty amazing stuff. We've listed some tools within these individual categories which are super helpful, but don't discount manual grunt work. Also want to point out some of those tools that are asterisked are not necessarily passive, depending on how you use them, right? So right now during the recon, we don't want to visit the website, we don't want to call them, we don't want to give them any indication at all that we're actually targeting them. So for example, a tool like Foca, right? Foca is an amazing tool. You harvest a bunch of documents, you throw it into Foca, Foca cranks on the documents and starts spitting out emails, names, file paths, computers, OS, software installed, software versions installed. But if you run Foca out of the box and just give it a website and click go, it'll actually harvest all the documents from the website itself. So hundreds and hundreds of documents will be pulled down from that website when you click the button. So if they're watching, they'll notice. Another way to use it is to get the documents using alternate means, then drag them and drop them in FOCA and let us do its work. So my point is just be careful about the tools. I made the mistake of learning the hard way. Hey, great tool, let's go, get stuff. And just totally blasting an organization with a bunch of automation, which was not good. So tools are great, just make sure you know what they do. I learned that the hard way. So again, bring in our baseline. All right, next slide. You're back. So just as a lead into Gabe's slide, a lot of that, what we just talked about, you can do over the wire. What Gabe's going to talk about, actually what Gabe's done a lot of, is passive physical reconnaissance, right? So what can I do, what can I learn by interacting with the physical infrastructure, right? So there's passive reconnaissance, getting information from an organization without sending a packet. There's also passive reconnaissance you can do in the physical world. So that's what Gabe's going to talk about before we jump back into some of the wire stuff.
Okay, so Phil just talked about this slide.
No, I didn't. Give it lead-in, man.
So everything Phil said, remember, it's passive, right? All of these things that we talked about doing so far, we can talk about tools. Don't touch your target, right? 0 packets. So you can do FOCA, you can do all the stuff we talked about so far without touching the targets. None of that stuff. So we're going to talk about passive recon too, physical. How can you do that, you say? Because your physical body is in your target area. How do you do that? Sure. Depends on what the target is, right? But say it's like a bank, right? Can you just walk into that bank as a person, I'm a new customer, grab stuff? Sure you can. It's passive, you're not interacting with a human, right? Because social engineering is really human engineering, right? That's what we call it, because you're interacting with a human being trying to create a certain scenario or a certain thing to happen, right? So if you don't do that, you're doing it passively. So yes, you can. Recon routes, right? Smoking area. Who smokes in here? Anybody? Okay, who can pretend to smoke? So you gotta pretend to smoke. Smoking area is huge. If you ever end up doing a physical engagement, the first place you should look is a smoking area. There's always 1 or 2 or 5. And they're usually right outside the front door, like where we work. It's right outside the door, like you can't even get out with the people in the smoking area. So that's a good area to look. The gym, can you passively go to the gym and grab stuff? Sure. So what I'm talking about is scoping out people across the street or whatever, scoping out where the gym is. Some places you may have an area here where they work, and right across the street's the gym. They're walking across the street to the gym. You're scoping them out. You walk in, they go do the thing, start working out, and you leave their badge sitting in the thing, right? They may lock it, they don't lock it, or if they do lock it, you got these, or you got a shim, right, for little turny turns. So then you just take a picture of that badge, you take it back with your software and make a badge, right? All passive, you didn't interact with the human at all. So local eateries, there's usually always one of those, right? After hours hotspots. What happens at after hours hotspots? Dig, Madra, right? Every time drink. So if you work on Spayware, dig, Madra, right? Right down the street. What happens?
Talk about work.
Alcohol.
Drink.
Yeah. Oh, you're the last one. That doesn't count. You cheated, right? So yeah, people start drinking, right? What happens when you start drinking? Loose lips sink ships, Michael. So people blither blather, right? So that's one of the best jobs, right? You're getting paid to do passive recon, and you're just sitting there having a few drinks, people jibber jabbering over here, and you're writing notes down, right? Definitely happens. Happens all the time. Parking lot, people leave their badges hanging up, they leave stuff in their car, you just shim the car, you steal whatever they got in there, take pictures of it. That happened, right? Was that big VA thing that happened? Remember that? 5 billion, was it 5 billion? 5 trillion? A Googleplex amount? It was a lot of money. Just stole it out of the car. Bloop, thank you. Passive, I mean, it's active, you grab something, but you didn't interact with the human. Okay, so next. Establishing your baseline, what do you need? Okay, this is just a short list. We're talking about what you need, not all the cool whiz bang stuff. Think of a James Bond movie, right? He goes and sees Q. Q just gives him a few gadgets. He doesn't load him up with all this stuff. He says, here's a couple things. Here's your watch that shoots lasers and all that stuff, right? So this is the things that you kind of need, right? Camera, that kind of goes in hand nowadays. It's kind of easy to get them on your phone, right? But it used to be where we had to, you know, hide them somehow, like a little green meanie. Remember those? A book, and you kind of carve it out, put a camera in there. You need a monocular. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Remember depth perception and your peripheral vision. That's why I say monocular, not binocular, right? So you can see, okay, out this side. We'll talk about that a little more next one. You need a proper bag. You need a space pen. You need a waterproof notebook, and you need street smarts. And optional is a tire. And I don't mean walk, run, dude, although that's an option. But I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. So what you need to do with the things that you need to have. Camera, be natural, use cover, right? Don't act like a Japanese tourist where you're out there taking pictures, you know, asking people to pose with their secret documents and stuff, right? Be natural, use a camera. Make a little hidey thing if you can, like I said. So one of the things, like I said, with a book is you cut out the book, you put your camera in there, and you're just sitting there taking notes or whatever, taking pictures. The monocular, I said, remember depth perception and peripheral. Camera, right? Keep your surroundings available. High writing portraits. And so what would you use a binocular for, you're asking? Are you doing spying across the street? Yeah, that's part of it. But also, like if you're in a building, right? And there's somebody over there, they're putting their password in, or they're doing a little cipher, and you're sitting down, and you can secretly do it, you know, in a little cube and nobody can see you. You can check out what that code is or put it in on the password. So proper bag, I'm biased about proper bags, but it really is important to get yourself a Maxpedition or a 511, maxpedition.com. Bonus code, Gabe. We'll get you no discount. I'll give you my address if you want to buy me something. So yeah, but you got to have a proper bag. I mean, you can't. I mean, if you're dudes, you got to have a purse, right? Bring a purse with you. You can't have all this stuff all over the place, right? Bag, you can get in and out with your gear, steal documents, do whatever you got to do, right? It's got to look natural, right? Think about that. Bag. Space pen. Why did I say space pen? Because you can write in any kind of conditions, right? Whether it's hot, cold, rainy, whatever. Upside down. Waterproof notebook. C-pen. Learn sniper infantry techniques I have on there. I am a prior infantry guy in the Marine Corps. So there's some techniques you can take from the infantry. Anybody heard intersecting fields of fire? Right? That guy has the intel guy. So that applies to cameras too, right? When people set up security, they have cameras overlapping fields of camera vision. Right? So when you're using your waterproof notebook, again, you need to be able to write in any climate place, right? So make sure that you're taking notes of an area, right? You draw a picture. Here's my building, here's my cameras, intersecting fields of vision, guards are over here, I mean, all that stuff, right? You want to take that layout, basically take a snapshot of that as if you would with a camera, but if you didn't have a camera, right? So that's what you want a waterproof notebook for, and many other reasons. So what do I mean by sniper? That goes into the camera thing, it goes into the monocular thing, right? There's techniques you can learn, just Google them after this, but there's techniques you can learn where you need to be able to get good at seeing something for a short period of time and remembering that. So that's a sniper thing where you up and down and see stuff and remember it, right? So you don't want to look at something and try to memorize what's happening and just sit there. Like,
I think you might be doing Recon.
you got it, right? Got it. Don't do that. So just want to walk by. So a scenario of this, and I've done this in real life at a place where they had a lot of things, and it was very a thing. So once we got inside, right, every single door inside had a little cipher lock on it, right? We had to put a code in to get inside. So you don't sit there, walk by, and do this number, right? And then go in the bathroom, walk by like this, and you capture the code as they're putting it in, and you walk into the bathroom and write that code down. And then you're usually doing this at the end of the day, right? For 16, 1700, everybody's leaving. You hang out in the bathroom. That's every bit as important as the smoking areas, right? I'm not kidding. Hang out in the bathroom, take a dookie-doo for a while, wait till everybody's gone, come back out, the halls are clear, boop, 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 put your code in, right? So street smarts, optional attire. This may be a sensitive topic, but if you have on your team available to you an attractive female, and you're doing passive reconnaissance it should be no secret that they can typically get, no offense ladies, they can typically get more information than a guy could, right? Would you rather have this eliciting information from you, or would you rather have Sally Jones, for example? So just keep that in mind. We have done that. We have had people on our teams, females that were Intel, CI background, and they would do that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind as you're doing passive reconnaissance.
There was a female winner of the DEF CON CTF this year.
Oh yeah.
Totally, like closest competitor was like 200 points away. Like she totally blew away the competition. It was pretty amazing.
And she's not a hack say, if you will.
No, she doesn't even do it for a living. She's like, oh, this looks interesting. I'll try it. I don't know about it.
There was just an article too from RSA about the dudes with the thing, kind of like with the thing we do.
Oh yeah. So they, the couple of researchers used a very attractive female Facebook profile to literally elicit information from the company, so much to the point that they sent her laptop, network logon, badge, just here, you're hired. Just totally schooled them with this super attractive female Facebook person that they interacted with over the wire.
But she didn't exist. It was a
She
real
didn't
person.
exist. It was two guys, probably looked a lot like us, created her. There's also a great talk there's a gentleman, his name's Jordan Harbinger. He owns a company called Art of Charm. He gave a talk at DerbyCon 2012. He literally set out as a personal project to socially engineer people who list themselves as part of the top secret clearance groups on LinkedIn. Have you all seen this?
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like people, yeah, I've got clearance. I'm here. Come get me. So he said Art of Charm basically teaches. He only takes male clients and literally teaches them charm techniques. You know, how to elicit information from people, how to go on dates, things like that. So I think he literally teaches James Bond types what to do in these situations. So he had a matchmaker that worked for him full time who created Facebook profiles specifically for the targets he was after. So he would research his target, find out what they like,